Coming up on the First Take podcast, should Manny Pacquiao have told everyone about his bum shoulder? Is LeBron to blame for the loss in Game 1? And where do the Cowboys and Jets stand after the draft? All that and more coming up on the First Take podcast, which starts right now. Good morning, everyone. How are you? Welcome to First Take. It's Kerry Champion and Skip Bayless in Bristol, Connecticut. It's wonderful to see you this morning.
It's great to see you. Why is it so empty over there?
There's no chair here, and that is because our dear, dear friend, Stephen A. Smith, is joining us from an undisclosed location.
Undisclosed
location?
location?
Yeah, he's on Mission Impossible 5, I believe. It's a secret.
You know what, Skip Bayless? First of all, good morning, Kerry Champion. How are you? Skip Bayless, let me tell you something, man. I have a day off. I took a day off because we know what my schedule is like, and somehow, some way, I'm sitting there and I have to look at you and I have to talk to you on my day off. Why are you bothering me, Skip Bayless? Why am I at my undisclosed location having to sit here and look at you and talk to you today? I thought I was going to get a break from you today, and here I am. Why are you bothering me, Skip? Why?
You're virtually in hiding today because you know that if my man Manny Pacquiao had been healthy for that fight, your man might have been on his back at the end of that fight. That's what you know.
We're not going to take Kerry Champion's job. We're going to let her present the question
right.
so I can get this over with, so I can go back to my life away from you.
Yeah, I know. You needed a break from this one, I guess, after yesterday.
I needed a break from what I had to wear to start this show yesterday.
Well, listen, Stephen A., thank you for joining us. We're playing musical chairs with guest debaters. Should be fun. We have Chris Broussard here. We also have our coach, Herm Edwards, and Chauncey Billups. So it's going to be exciting. But first, let's get to the reason why Stephen A. decided to join you for a few moments. Manny Pacquiao could face disciplinary action from the Nevada boxing officials for failing to disclose a shoulder injury before his fight with Floyd Mayweather Jr. Nevada Athletic Commission Chairman said the state attorney general's office will look at why Pacquiao checked no a day before the fight.
Not Pacquiao, but his manager.
Pacquiao and team checked,
Just for the record.
Yeah, so you want to make sure he did. Pacquiao and team checked no a day before the fight, asking if he had a shoulder injury. Meanwhile, Pacquiao will undergo surgery later this week to repair a significant tear in his rotator cuff. He is expected to be out for 9 to 12 months. And Skip wants to make sure that he's being fair to his man Pacquiao. He didn't do it. It was Pacquiao and team. So, but do you blame him? That's the question.
That is the question, Stephen A. Smith. I cannot blame Manny Pacquiao for not disclosing this injury, Stephen A. Smith. Obviously, Manny Pacquiao believed that he had finally dared and taunted and goaded Mayweather into finally taking this fight after 5 long years. And Stephen A., I'm told by members of Manny Pacquiao's camp that Pacquiao feared that if he disclosed just before the fight that he needed surgery for a torn rotator cuff, he feared that Mayweather would finally have the excuse that he would need to bow completely out of the fight. If Manny had to disclose that he needed a surgery that could keep him out for as long as a year, that Floyd would then say, well, what the heck, man? I want to retire in September, as he's told you again and again. And a year from now, with a Floyd Mayweather Jr., 39 going on 40, what are the odds that he would say, okay, now I'll take the Pacquiao fight? So obviously, Manny Pacquiao decided, I think I can still beat him even with very little right hand. And I thought he did beat him round for round. I had it 7-5. We don't have to go back into that. But I thought Manny fought his tail off in that fight with barely a right hand to go with his combo punches. Now, did the manager for Manny Pacquiao blow it for him in the pre-fight form by not disclosing that he had a shoulder injury? Yes, he did, because he could have set up by disclosing a permissible anti-inflammatory shot that Manny could have taken a couple of hours before the fight. That would have been okay with USADA and with the Nevada State Athletic Commission. But, Stephen A., I'm here to tell you, if the cuff is torn, I'm not sure that shot would have done any good on that night, or much good at all. And in the end, I thought Manny Pacquiao still fought a great fight against a great fighter who probably wouldn't have fought Manny Pacquiao a year from now as he did on May the 2nd this past Saturday night. So I do not blame Manny for sucking it up and saying, I just have to try to do this as best I can now.
So let me get this straight, Skip Bayless. Manny Pacquiao, that we saw Saturday night, he lost the fight because he had the torn rotator cuff. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, I thought he won the fight, but I would have... Look, would I have picked Manny to knock out your man Floyd if I'd known he had a torn rotator cuff in his right shoulder? There is no way, because his power comes from his power combo. He needs left, right, then left uppercut. And he didn't have it.
So this is why you woke me up and wanted me to come on my day off. But
Absolutely.
It's nonsense. This is unbelievable.
You don't want to hear any of this, but it's the truth.
You're right. You are absolutely right. I do not want to hear any of this. You know why, Skip Bayless? Because did it ever occur to you that, you know what, this rotator cuff injury that he had may have been exacerbated, may, dare I say, have even occurred during the fight from all of those blows he was missing while throwing punches at Floyd Mayweather Jr. And could that be possible, Skip Bayless?
No.
Could it be? Yes, it is.
No.
Yes, it is. It could be. Listen, I don't know if you know this, Skip Bayless. I know. Maybe I've kept it from you from time to time. But I am a doctor, honorary and all, from Winston-Salem State University. I kind of know some things about this stuff. Skip Bayless, let me tell you something right now, man.
Here.
Let me tell you something right now. When you take into account the fact that the man threw over 400 punches, okay, and the man connected on 81, that tells you all you need to know, Skip Bayless. The man missed 81% of his punches. You know what? If I missed that many shots throwing at somebody, I might have a torn rotator cuff too, swinging it air like that. That's probably what happened to Manny Pacquiao. That's really what transpired. So I don't want to hear this nonsense right now. Oh, he's got a torn rotator cuff. That explains it. That's why he was getting schooled. That's why he was missing so much. That's why he was given a boxing lesson that he was given. That's why Floyd Money Mayweather, the best defensive fighter in the game, arguably ever. So slippery, so slick, so skilled, such a magician in the ring, the guy that cracks Da Vinci codes, cracked Manny Pacquiao's code so badly that he caused the rotator cuff. That's really what happened there. I want to hear that nonsense. This is ridiculous, okay? Manny Pacquiao stepped into the ring. He looked pretty fine to me. His shoulder looked absolutely fine, Skip, when he was leaning back, holding his hands up and setting himself in the camera so he could take a selfie. His rotator cuff wasn't bothering him then. Wasn't bothering him when he took the selfie. Wasn't bothering him when he was running his mouth, and they were running their mouths prior to the fight. Didn't bother him when he was walking into the ring. Didn't bother him when he threw the flurry in the 4th round or the 6th round, I might add. But now that we sit here in the aftermath of him getting schooled, you're trying to tell me the rotator cuff was the reason why? Oh, stop it. Just stop it. He got schooled. He got abused. He got sat up there and taught a boxing lesson. He missed almost 400 shots he threw in the direction of Floyd Money Mayweather.
If we'd had some objective judges.
You're the only person.
No, I'm not. Evander Holyfield and others are coming forward now saying the same thing.
Please. Everybody knows he lost the fight. He lost.
So wait, your contention is he tore his rotator cuff during the fight. That's what you're saying, right?
That's right. Missing all of those shots he was throwing at Floyd Mayweather.
I hope you're kidding. I hope you're kidding. I hope you're flailing, because that's all you got today on your day off.
That's all I got. What do you mean that's all I got? Listen, you know what? Let me tell you what I got, Skip. I'll tell you. Let me give you the laundry list of what I have. I have a decision in favor of Mayweather. I have Manny Pacquiao connecting on 19% of his blows.
Oh, please.
I have Freddie Roach and Bob Arum claiming that Manny Pacquiao was in the best shape of his life and ready to go. You know what I also have, Skip, that I didn't even bring up yesterday? And I don't mean to sit there, and I'm not in any way mocking this, because I'm not being funny about this. In all seriousness, this spiritual conversion that you brought up, how he was so determined, how he was focused, how so many people out there tried to give the impression that divine intervention would assist the greatness of Manny Pacquiao in taking down Floyd Money Mayweather. They were doing that. I'm not accusing you of doing it.
Not me.
But they were practically doing it. I didn't say you.
Okay.
But they were practically doing it, okay? And when you brought up spiritual conversion, even though you didn't mean to do that, there were other people that took that to interpret it as being such a thing. But in the end, what did it come down to? Because let me tell you something right now. It came down to Floyd Mayweather against Manny Pacquiao, and Manny Pacquiao, the boxer, not the puncher, not the fighter, not the great champion that Manny Pacquiao is, but the Manny Pacquiao against this Floyd Money Mayweather. Money Mayweather was his kryptonite, because Money Mayweather is not going to sit up there and trade blows. I guarantee you, if Money Mayweather was a stationary target, we wouldn't have been hearing all of this. We would have heard about how great Manny Pacquiao was, but he got schooled. And that's what happened. I don't care if he's in the hospital getting his I hope he's okay, and I hope that the operation goes successfully. I wish him no ill will. I don't want to hear all this nonsense about how that was the reason he lost. He lost because he got outboxed by a superior boxer. Period. Period.
Let me get this straight. So Floyd Money Mayweather schooled a one-armed man on Saturday night. I'm impressed by that.
No. Floyd Money Mayweather schooled somebody so badly, he turned him into a one-armed fighter. Because Manny Pacquiao's injury was sustained because he was missing so many shots, more than he had ever missed in his career. That's what happened.
Now let's deal with the facts.
These are the facts.
Right after the fight, Yahoo Sports, that Kevin Iole, great boxing writer, approached Bob Arum in the media room and was asking him questions about what happened to Pacquiao, and Arum dropped the little bombshell that, well, he had a shoulder injury. And the more that they checked into it, Arum said, hey, he has the Kobe Bryant injury. Arum said this right after the fight. And he was exactly right, because the MRI yesterday showed the Kobe Bryant rotator cuff injury, and Manny Pacquiao went to Kobe Bryant's surgeon and will have surgery from Kobe's surgeon. I don't know how much more, what more black and white do you need? He's got the MRI. All of our guys wrote about it. Dan Rayfield wrote about it. They know what happened from the MRI. He has a torn rotator cuff, and he had it before the fight. I think they didn't know how serious it was before the fight until they went Monday for the MRI. But I am sorry, I saw a one-armed fighter. I was shocked by how few right hands Manny Pacquiao threw. And even with his left hand, he had Floyd on the ropes and in trouble in round 4 and even in round 6. I thought he fought a stunning fight with basically one hand and one arm. And you're not going to be able to swallow that, because you're just going to try to laugh it off.
I can laugh it off. You know why I can laugh it off? Because like you're quick to point out what Yahoo Sports reported, I don't have to lean on their report. I spoke to Bob Arum on Friday. Bob Arum looked in my face and laughed at the notion that Floyd Mayweather was going to beat Manny Pacquiao.
Why wouldn't he?
I'm sorry. Hold on, wait a minute. You just finished pointing out what he said after the fight. I'm telling you what he said right before the fight.
Well, he's not going to tell you he's got a bum shoulder.
Before the fight. Or almost 24 hours before the fight.
Sure.
Bob Arum sat up there and laughed. He didn't sit there and say Manny Pacquiao was going to win. He laughed.
Freddie Roach laughed. Freddie Roach made you a bet. He was scoffing at you.
And lost. And by the way, props to Freddie Roach. Reached out to me yesterday. He wanted my size shoes, which is a 13. And he's going to send me my Tom Ford shoes.
Oh, wow.
Freddie Roach is coming through. Major
guy.
props to the all-time trainer. But the point that I'm trying to make to you is this. I don't want to hear anybody can say anything post-fight after the outcome, leading into the fight, not a week earlier, not 2 weeks earlier, not 3 weeks earlier, 1 day earlier. I spoke to Bob Arum.
So what? He's not going to tell you.
I spoke to Freddie Roach. Hold it. He told Yahoo. Why wouldn't he tell me?
It was after the fight. It was after the fight.
What's the problem? All I'm saying to you is this. Anybody could come up with an excuse then. Anybody could do that. There's an
MRI. He's got a torn rotator cuff.
I believe the injury. I'm just saying that I believe it was sustained when he was missing all of those blows.
Well, let me ask you this then, Mr. Smith. Let's not let the facts get in the way of your diatribe here.
Oh, really?
Why would Manny Pacquiao ask for an anti-inflammatory shot 2 hours before the fight for his right shoulder if he didn't have a significant injury in his right shoulder? Why would he ask for that? So wait, he's going to take an anti-inflammatory shot because he knows, maybe God told him that he's going to get hurt during the fight. Is that what you're telling me? Come on, stop it.
You want to talk, but you don't want to listen. You brought up Kobe Bryant.
I don't want to listen.
Kobe Bryant. Remember when Kobe Bryant tore his rotator cuff? It was instant. He immediately grabbed his shoulder. He could barely lift
So did
it.
Pacquiao.
He went to the locker room that day, and he was done. He was done. Manny Pacquiao supposedly sustained this days, if not weeks before the fight, kept training, showed up Saturday night.
He did.
Stop it. He messed up. He messed it up during the fight.
Facts.
During the fight.
2.5 weeks before the fight, he tore his rotator cuff.
This is why you called me on this show.
Do you realize he quit sparring 2.5 weeks before the fight?
Oh, now he quit sparring.
He did. The Filipino media were all there, all over it, asking Freddie Roach day after day, what's going on? Why isn't he sparring anymore? And Freddie said, oh, he's sparring off camera. He's doing it at an undisclosed location because he doesn't want so much media watching him sparring. He wasn't sparring at all. I'm sorry. You're wrong. He was hurt. Significant tear.
Let me ask you a question, Skip. What would you be saying if this were Floyd Money Mayweather?
I'd say rematch. Give him another shot.
What would you be saying about the outcome if it were reversed and Floyd Mayweather came out 2 days later and was like, yo, I got a torn rotator cuff. Here's the MRI.
Say, you know
blah, blah. What would you be saying, Skip?
I'd be saying Floyd Mayweather deserves another shot. Let's do it again, and let's do it right. But we're going to have to wait a whole year until he fully recovers from rotator cuff surgery, which is no minor surgery.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up because that's exactly what this is all about. This is about Manny Pacquiao wanting to send a message to the public that he legitimately deserves a second chance after getting schooled the first time around. But Floyd did tell me Sunday morning he could come get it. It's not a problem as long as Bob Arum and them are willing to put up the money this time instead of making us do it. He has no problem with it. He has no problem with it.
So
he has no problem with it.
A whole year from now, next Cinco de Mayo, Floyd Mayweather Jr. is open to fighting Manny Pacquiao a second time. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's what he said. He told me Sunday morning that as long as Bob Arum and Top Rank are willing to put up the money instead of making them do it, he has no problem. He could come get some more. Floyd was planning on retiring in September because that's his last fight. But that would tie Rocky Marciano's all-time record of 49-0. Yep. To eclipse it, he could sit there and beat up on Manny Pacquiao. That's not a problem.
Really?
Let him come.
So he can beat up on a Manny Pacquiao who actually has a right hand in the next fight. That's what you're saying?
So, you're making excuses. You know, I thought you sounded horrible
yesterday. He has a torn rotator cuff. I'm not making any excuses. It just is what it is.
Yesterday, when you backed out of your bed and dishonored it by taking off the shirt and the hat for most of the show.
I did not. I wore it. That was the only. I was supposed to wear it on the show.
Yes.
I wore it on the show.
Yes.
I didn't lose. He won the fight. I'm sorry. He won 7 rounds to Floyd's 5. Who was the aggressor in the fight? It was Manny Pacquiao.
Did I not wear Tony Romo's jersey and hat and a cowboy hat on my birthday for the entire 2 hours? Yes. And you couldn't even keep it on for 20 minutes.
Wait.
You
There's a big difference. Time out.
You dishonored the bet. That's what you did.
There's a big difference. Cowboy games aren't judged by judges. Do you realize that? You actually win and lose on the field.
No, I'm talking about
Eagles lost
the bet.
on the field. They lost to the Cowboys and they lost to the Redskins, and you lost your bet.
Everybody in America knows I showed up and honored my bet, and you did it. Everybody knows that.
I didn't
That's
lose.
The bottom line.
I didn't lose. I wore it.
You did lose.
Did I not wear his cap the last 20 minutes of the show? I wore that silly
20 minutes,
engineer's cap for 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
My God, what more can you ask of me?
2 hours. I need
therapy from having to wear that cap.
Kerry Champion. Kerry Champion, help me out here.
Yeah.
2 hours on my birthday.
2 hours on your birthday, you wore the promo jersey, and you were a good sport about it.
And it's the best you've ever looked on this show. Ever. It's the best dressed you ever wore. The cap looked good on you. The jersey fit you.
Time out. So, Stephen A., are you saying that he did not honor the bet? I'm confused.
I'm saying he dishonored the bet. He didn't wear it for 2 hours.
Okay.
You know what?
All right.
The truth is, now that we know about the torn rotator cuff, the bet should have been off. I didn't know that, but it should have been a disqualification of the bet. It should have been off. But the truth is, I won the fight anyway. In my heart of hearts, I believe it with all my heart and soul
You're the only
because
person
the
in America who
aggressor is
does.
supposed to win the round unless there's a knockdown. There were no knockdowns in this fight. The aggressor in at least 7 rounds, if not 8 or 9, was Manny Pacquiao. If we'd had objective judges who weren't blinded by Floyd's reputation for the best defensive fighter in the history of boxing, then maybe we would have had a different outcome. If we would have had at least one international judge in the mix of the 3 American judges, we might have had a different outcome. Because as Evander Holyfield said, it was pretty clear to him that Pacquiao won the fight because he was the aggressor. That's what I saw. I tweeted it round by round, 7-5. So why should I come in here and have to wear that stuff that you made me wear when I didn't lose? I won. The judges were wrong.
Because you gave your word and you lost.
Oh, please.
Because
I give my word when I lose, but I didn't lose.
It's okay because I never have to worry about a bet again.
Did
I'll never honor it.
Did I wear it?
Because
did I wear it for like 10 minutes?
In the end, what it comes down to is this. Manny Pacquiao may have tweaked his shoulder or whatever the case, but it was exacerbated when he stepped in the ring. He lost.
Are you kidding?
He lost. He lost. He missed 400 shots. Period.
Stephen A., from your undisclosed location, are you happy that you joined us from your undisclosed location?
No, I'm not. He's wasting my time this morning. Wasting my time. Wasting my time.
We apologize for wasting your time on your day off.
I need a day off now. Can I have the rest of the show off? You have worn me out for 25 minutes.
Just go.
You're making my head hurt.
Go.
I have a migraine from you.
Stephen A., please enjoy the rest of your day off. I hope you do something. Don't be like that.
Please don't.
You're not being a
I don't have a day off.
I will because I'll be away from you.
Okay.
I will.
All right. Well, you know what? Enjoy your time
I'm going to
off.
call you in 5 minutes.
Don't call
I'm
me.
not answering. I will not answer this phone.
Stephen A., enjoy your day off.
All right,
Thank you so much for being here.
Take care.
Okay, so again, we thank Stephen A. for joining us on his day off from an undisclosed location. He was really stressed out, but apparently there was some breaking news that was the result of said segment. What happened?
My friend Stephen A. Smith just got a text from his man Floyd Mayweather Jr., who said he would gladly fight Manny Pacquiao a year from now, or maybe even a September from now, like a year from September, but at least a year from now, when Manny Pacquiao recovers fully from his rotator cuff surgery. According to the text that Stephen A. got from Floyd himself, Floyd is open to a rematch a year from now, or maybe even more than a year from now, whenever Manny fully recovers from his surgery. So that is stunning, great news to me, because I would love to see it.
All right, so we all thought there would be a part 2. It seems that is the case with the breaking news that Stephen A. received from Floyd Mayweather. We leave that there. Let's head to the NBA, shall we? Houston may have a problem. Without CP3, the Clippers were still able to snatch home court advantage. Our Chris Broussard was at the game last night, and he joins us now from Houston to talk about said game. Blake Griffin with 26, 14, and 3 lifted the team, but the Rockets had 24 turnovers, the most they've had in a playoff game this season.
Guys stepped up and made plays. I mean, Matt Barnes was huge, Austin Rivers, Jamal Crawford, DJ, Big Baby. I can go on down the list, and everybody stepped up, and that's what we need, especially when you're missing a guy like Chris.
Blake was just, he was sensational. You know, it's funny, I got on him because he started doing the Chris thing. He stopped looking to score at one point. I told him, we need you to do everything, and he did it.
All right, Chris, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's a late night and an early morning for you, but we appreciate it. We're playing musical chairs with our guest debaters today. So let's talk about the game specifically. Was that really about good Clippers or just bad Rockets?
Well, it was a mixture of both. I mean, I have to give the Clippers all the credit in the world. We know Blake Griffin had the triple-double with 26, 14 rebounds and 13 assists. But you look at the entire team, everybody stepped up. They had 31 assists on 41 made field goals. That's incredible, especially when you consider they were missing the best assist man in the league in Chris Paul. Matt Barnes steps up with 20 points. J.J. Redick and Austin Rivers give you 17 points apiece. We all raved about what Austin Rivers did against San Antonio in that one game. But for him to start a second-round playoff game, this is a guy that has had very little success in the NBA. To go out there and score 17 points is huge. So it was an entire team effort. I didn't even mention Jamal Crawford with the great 20 points off the bench. Now, that said, Houston made some terrible mistakes. They played poorly, okay? All they could do was get out in transition. They had 28 fast break points. When they were in the half court, their offense was a mess. James Harden needs to be more aggressive. He's an unselfish player. So when they're showing 2 and 3 defenders at him, he's going to give the ball up. But he's going to have to be more aggressive. He only took 13 shots and only got to the foul line 6 times. So I think it was a combination of both. I don't want to take anything away from the Clippers because for them to win that game on short rest without CP3 was just tremendous. But clearly the Rockets need to make a lot of adjustments. They played very poorly. 24 turnovers? 24 turnovers. The Clippers had 23, which they have an excuse because Chris Paul was out. But 24 turnovers by the Rockets is ridiculous.
I'm with you, Chris. I'm going to put this even more on the Rockets. As sensationally as the Clippers played in the second half, and it was sensational, I think you would agree with me that the Rockets didn't take the Clippers seriously enough and ultimately paid a severe price for that. And, again, the game started in Houston's favor. Again, you were there. I was just watching on TV. But speaking of Austin Rivers, he just looked overmatched in the first quarter, as well he should have in a game of this magnitude as he gets pushed into the starting lineup. They, as a team, the Clippers, had 8 turnovers in the first quarter. And somehow they managed to barely hang on, even though the Rockets went up by 13 on a Prigioni 3 with 8 minutes left in the second quarter. And, Chris, that's when you step on the throat, man. That's when you put that team away. And James Harden just disappeared in the second quarter. That was the quarter where they let it get away from them. James Harden had 0 points in the second quarter. He had 1 assist. And all of a sudden you look up at halftime, and Doc's team is hanging within 4. So they're down 13, and in the next 8 minutes, they cut it all the way back to 4. And as Doc said after the game, that's when we won the game because we went to halftime thinking, hey, we got a chance. They had life. And yet James Harden, again, runner-up for MVP, by his standards, he had a terrible game. I know he had 20 points, and he did have 12 assists, but he had 9 turnovers himself. Got to the free throw line only 6 times, made 5, but he averages over 10 free throws a game, as you well know. And it was just such a quiet 20 from him. And then, as you pointed out, Blake Griffin was just astonishing in the second half. I didn't know he had that in him. 10 assists in the second half? I mean, he was BG3. He's playing point forward. You know, he's driving and dishing. And then down the stretch, just in the second half alone, J.J. Redick has 17. Austin Rivers, or Austin Powers, whichever is one or the other, I guess, had 14. And Matt Barnes had 13, all in the second half as they made 11 out of 16 three-pointers. That's unbelievable to me. That's the same kind of shooting they carried over from Game 7 against my San Antonio Spurs at Staples. And the truth was that the Rockets, who should have blown out the Clippers, ended up getting blown out at home in Game 1. That's mind-boggling to me. And a lot of that has to be on a James Harden who was just too quiet last night as the leader and the driving force of that team. That's just me.
Well, Skip, the difference between these two teams, at least last night, and I really think, period, and we're going to see it going forward, is mental toughness. Whenever anybody talks about the Rockets and why they are not considered, you know, they're contenders, I guess. They're an elite team. But why they're not viewed as a team that can win it all or win the West is because people don't think they have the mental toughness. Dwight Howard, we know that's his reputation. But also James Harden. They think this is a silly, loosey-goosey team. And I'll tell you what, the Clippers, Doc Rivers, I've been somewhat critical of him since he's been in L.A. because he had not brought this team any further really than Vinny Del Negro. And I wasn't seeing Doc's imprint on this team. I see it now. We saw it last series. I talked to the players before the game, after the game. They said, look, Doc has really, we've taken on his personality now. He's finally gotten through to these guys. And they said themselves, we were not battle tested before. If you look back last year, especially against Oklahoma City, in the past, when the going got tough in the playoffs, they folded. Chris Paul had some struggles down the stretch, as we know. What they did against San Antonio has totally transformed this team within themselves. This is what they were telling me. Mentally, we know now we're battle tested. To come back from being blown out in Game 3, to come back from DeAndre Jordan basically kind of giving away Game 5 with the offensive basket interference, to win 6 and 7 against the defending champs. They told me, look, before we felt like we could win, we could win. Now we know. Inside, we know we can win. And they rolled that confidence into that game last night, even without Chris Paul. And Houston doesn't have that degree of mental toughness.
I am completely with you. I'm a big Doc Rivers fan, and Stephen A. and I have gone back and forth all year about the Clippers' mental makeup. Do they have the basketball sort of intangibles or character to advance in the playoffs, to go deep into the playoffs? And I was always unsure until Game 7 against my Spurs. And I said to you yesterday that they came of age. They arrived against the Spurs. And I'm with you. That was an incredible carryover of that new confidence. I'm not sure what, exactly how Doc did it, but he worked on their psyches. He lifted their psyches into a place where they finally believed they could make big shots and big plays when it mattered. And they used to not be able to. I know the Spurs, the book on the Clippers in the past was, they'll fold when it's time.
Eventually, yeah.
And they didn't fold when it was time in the fourth quarter of Game 7. Obviously, they just shot the lights out. Chris Paul made play after play. He was just crazy. I mean, the shot he made to win the game was just, I said yesterday, degree of difficulty. That was a 9.9 on a scale of 10. But he did it, and he made the clutch free throws. And I just think you're right. They just took off, and we saw the development of that last night in the second half when they didn't even have their leader and they won.
You know what, Chris? Let's talk about the other game in the East, shall we?
Can I ask a real quick question before you do that?
Sure.
Chris, do you think Chris Paul will play Game 2, or should he play Game 2? Just quick thought.
I'm a no on both.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll play. I talked with Chris after the game. He didn't give a definitive answer, but I don't think he's going to play. He can't jog. He told me last night, I still can't jog. It's fairly damaged.
So are you
I
saying
think you'll see him in Game 3.
In Game 3, so if he can't jog, you think Game 3 is where we'll see him?
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, let's talk about
no need to risk it. I mean, even if you go back to L.A. with a split, and then you get Chris Paul at close to 100% versus bringing him on at 75% or whatever he may be in Game 2. It's not totally 100% sure he won't play, but I think you'll see him in a suit tomorrow night.
To the East, if Game 1 was any indication of what's to come, LeBron could be in some trouble. The Bulls held him to 19 points for the first time in 11 postseason games, shooting just 39% and turning the ball over 5 times when he was guarded by Jimmy Butler. Let's listen to LeBron on what happened.
I wasn't that good tonight, so I have to be much better, and this game is something we can learn from, which we will, and come back with a better game plan in Game 2.
LeBron saying he has to be better. So let's talk about that, Chris. He says he has to be better. How much blame is on LeBron for last night's loss?
Well, he wasn't great. It's hard to blame him. He guarded Pau Gasol. He guarded Jimmy Butler. He guarded Derrick Rose. He guarded Joakim Noah. And he had almost a triple-double. He didn't have a bad game, but by his standards, he's got to be much better, especially without Kevin Love. And I think Cleveland can still win this series and win the East without Kevin Love. I think you miss him, but Tristan Thompson, you're probably better defensively without Love, and you still got 2 of the top 10 offensive players in the league. One of them, Kyrie Irving, showed up big time. LeBron was not that good, as he said, 6 turnovers. Now, he's had a problem with turnovers all year. He averaged a career high 3.9. He's got to be more careful with the basketball. The turnover he had late. Cleveland had chances to win this game. As bad as they were for the most part, they had chances to win this game. With 2 minutes left, LeBron's coming down, gets in the paint. Should have just pulled up for a 12-foot jump shot in the lane. Instead, looks for somebody to pass it to. That was a terrible turnover. So you don't put total blame on him, but he certainly has to be much better if they're going to win this game. He has to go in there with the mentality that he's going to be a big-time scorer in this series. You saw Kyrie deliver. That's his wingman. Now LeBron has to deliver. Without Love, you got to give them more offense scoring-wise. I want to see him going to the bucket looking to score, not just to pass. He's going to get plenty of assists. That's what he does. But he's got to be more aggressive offensively looking to score. And, again, it's been his problem all year. But he has got to stop making these careless turnovers. It will not work against a team that's as plugged in defensively as the Chicago Bulls are.
So, Chris, you can't give total blame to LeBron, but some blame he does deserve.
Oh, no question. No question. I mean, yes, he was not. 19 points is not good enough when you're missing Kevin Love. You got to be better than that.
Bayless.
Chris Broussard, I have one question for you. Why is it you always seem to wind up on this show the morning after LeBron had an off game? I'm not going to call it a bad game. I'm just going to call it an off game by LeBron's standards. It seems like again and again you wind up here and it's just wrong.
It's not fair.
Yeah.
The basketball guys aren't fair.
Well, I've been on plenty of times over the years when he had a great game, and you still found a way. You still found a way to make it a bad game.
Okay.
The 48 points against Detroit, but we won't go there again.
We won't go there.
Somehow
Although
you found a way to criticize that performance.
Tell him, Chris.
So, Chris.
I got a lot of beefs with Skip today, but we won't go into the boxing. But go ahead. Tell me about LeBron.
Chris, I'm certainly not going to condemn LeBron James for what happened last night in Game 1 in his building in Cleveland, Ohio. And I guess before I get into my answer, the silver lining here is I believe that's 3 straight Game 1s that LeBron James has lost to the Chicago Bulls, and each of the previous times LeBron's team then won 4 straight games and won the series, obviously, in 5. Now, do I think that's going to happen this time? I seriously doubt that. But I must say that to me, closely watching the game last night, having high expectations for LeBron, I picked him to win this in 6 games. I thought he let his teammates down at home last night. I thought he let his crowd down because with that game begging to be taken over by the guy that you guys always call, Stephen A. always calls, the best player on the planet, I thought...
You're saying he's not anymore?
No, I'm saying he is. I'm setting the bar that high. We're talking about best player on the planet. I thought he was pretty awful in the second half by those standards. I thought that the harder he tried, the worse it got for LeBron. And sometimes we do see that. He's just trying too hard. And I agree with you. He was working hard on defense. And that defense was working hard on LeBron James. But again, we are talking, we fully acknowledge best player on the planet. And in the second half, he was not there for his team because in that third quarter alone, he went 1 for 6. He missed both his 3-point shots. He missed all 3 of his threes in the second half. We know that's not his strength. But in that third quarter, he had 2 turnovers. He did have 4 assists. But then we got to the fourth quarter. He scored only 4 points. And I'm with you. Just keep attacking the basket. I don't care how big and strong Jimmy Butler is. I don't care how tall and long Gasol and Noah are. LeBron James cannot be stopped from getting to the basket or the free throw line. And too often he pulled up and took jump shots. Or, as you pointed out, he had the 2 killer turnovers late, the one he just traveled on, and then the other one you pointed out with 2:09 remaining. He goes up in the lane without a plan. Changed courses in midair, tried to find somebody to throw it to, and just threw it away. And it was a killer turnover because it took his team out of its comeback, and it took the crowd back out of the game. LeBron is better than that. And for the game, the numbers look pretty good. But as you know, Chris Broussard, against this team, LeBron's going to have to do better than 19 points. The other stats look great. The rebounds are high. The assists are high. Turnovers obviously too high at 6. But he's going to have to do a little better than 19 points on 9 of 22. And I think he can. And I think they can. I realize they're without Kevin Love. And I realize at home the first 2 they're without JR. I still think he's good enough and Kyrie is good enough to win these home games. I thought they were going to win last night, and I definitely think they'll win game 2 at home.
Well, I think we'll obviously see a different starting lineup. Tristan Thompson was good. You know, he had a positive plus-minus last night. I think you're going to probably see him in the starting lineup. And that's a big adjustment for this team because when he's on the floor, if he's there with Mozgov, you're not spreading, it's not spread out and the driving lanes aren't as open. But that's where this team is best suited to play now. You can't expect Mike Miller at his age with his health issues, Sean Marion or James Jones. All these guys are old. You can't expect them to start against this. This Bulls team is strong at every position in the starting lineup. And so you're going to have to go differently. But LeBron's going to have to be better. He's going to have to finish better. Yep. That layup he had, that's happened a lot this year. I mean, length, as always, is tough to finish over length, even for LeBron at times throughout his career. Now, he's not going up dunking on those guys like he used to, but he's got to make some of those layups. He's got to be the finisher at the rim that Kyrie Irving is. I mean, Kyrie Irving is a tremendous finisher at the rim. LeBron's going to have to finish like that in this series for Cleveland to win.
So, Chris, what do you hear from inside the Cavs? I continue to hear they're still not enamored of David Blatt's rotations and substitutions, that they still don't quite trust him to put the right player in the right spot at the right moment. Obviously, he started Mike Miller. I said yesterday on the show, he's got to play Mike Miller. I didn't think he'd put him in the starting lineup. But how do you feel like the Cavs feel about their coach in this playoff situation?
I mean, look, the veterans all season long have seen the things that Blatt just didn't know and really couldn't expect him to know, having coached in Israel for the previous 20 years. Now in the playoffs, that's even more magnified. Okay, so they see it. And I'm not saying they're going in, they're not focused on, hey, we don't have the guy to lead us to the title, but they do see some of these issues. And look, that's why LeBron has a ton of say within what they're going to do, offensively in particular. Tyronn Lue has a ton of say, and Larry Drew's on that staff, a former head coach who's done well in the league. So they're not just looking at Blatt like he can't lead us to the promised land, but they do understand he's going to come up short at times in this postseason, and these other guys have to get in there and use their experience in the NBA that he doesn't have to help get them over his hump. And you're going against one of the best coaches in the league in Thibodeau, now with an offense that can pretty much match his great defense. So it's no excuse. There are no excuses for Cleveland. No, Kevin Love's not an excuse. I'm even going to say J.R. Smith is not an excuse because J.R. brought that on himself. They need to get it done. LeBron needs to get it done, and they're capable of getting it done.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
All right, so let's rewind to 2009. American Idol was the #1 TV show. Beyonce's Single Ladies, remember, that was #1 as well. And in the NBA, Blake Griffin was the #1 draft pick. Take a look at the top 10 picks of the 2009 draft. Blake Griffin, #1 overall. Steph Curry, 7. Brandon Jennings at 10. Round it all off. If you had to do it all over again, and you were in charge of an NBA team, and I'm talking to you, Mr. Broussard, would you still take Blake Griffin at 1?
Now, we know what going into the draft, we know how every player is playing in the NBA to this point in their career. or we still are judging it with the same news that we had as they were all entering the draft?
Knowing what you
know now, where they are right now.
Knowing what we know
career.
now?
Yeah.
Look, you can't go wrong with Blake Griffin, but there's no question in my mind right now, knowing what we know, I would have to take Steph Curry. I mean, even though I voted for James Harden to be MVP, I can't get mad at Steph winning it because I thought it was that close. And Steph, they're all great players, those three guys. But I would take Steph first. And you can look at it several ways. Remember, the Clippers, of course, didn't have Chris Paul at that time. So you would have needed a point guard. So Steph Curry would have been the guy to take. But we can look at these lineups. You know, Steph has led his team to a great regular season. He's won an MVP award. And when we look at their supporting cast, particularly Blake and Steph, Blake's got the guy who's been the best point guard in the league for the past 5 years before Steph took that title this year. Okay? You got a top-flight center in DeAndre Jordan. You've got a great sixth man in Jamal Crawford. And you've got a top-5 coach who I still think at this point, just because Kerr's only done it for 1 year, you still probably have to put Doc Rivers ahead of Steve Kerr right now. So you've got a great coach. Steph has another great all-star guard next to him, and then some really, really, really good players, but none of them that'll probably make an all-star team next season. And then a very good neophyte coach in Steve Kerr. So Blake has as much help as Steph has, and yet Steph is able to win more games. He's obviously probably the most exciting player in the league, although Blake is exciting as well. Look, I'm not mad at, the Clippers for taking Blake. He's tremendous. He's getting better. And now that you got Chris Paul, you have a great backcourt, frontcourt 1-2 punch. But, hey, I'd have to take the MVP, a guy who could very easily become the face of this league. Some might say he already is because he led the league in all-star votes. I would still say it's LeBron is the face of the league. But you can't go wrong with Steph. So I would take Steph number one.
So, Chris, I don't know if you remember this, but before that draft, I went on record on this show saying I would take Steph over Blake at number one in that draft. But then you and I began to debate Blake Griffin.
I didn't remember.
You were completely sold on Blake, remember, going into his first year after the draft. And I was skeptical because I'm a University of Oklahoma fan because I grew up in Oklahoma City, so I watched probably close to every game Blake played. And remember, he went back for a second year at OU, so he wasn't a one and done. He went back for a sophomore year. And, Chris, I think I told you we did outside the lines debates about this. I told you that he couldn't make a shot beyond 3 feet in college. Now, maybe I overwatched him. I watched too closely. I was a little too hypercritical, because I root for the University of Oklahoma, but he was a 59% free throw shooter. Even in his second year, he averaged 2 assists per game, which wasn't bad, but there was none of this 10 assists in the second half kind of thing. My point about Blake is, Chris, I don't think I've ever seen a player improve as much as Blake Griffin has the last couple of years. He can shoot the lights out now. That 15 to 18-foot shot, if you just dare him to sit there and take it, he will take it, and he will make it and make it and make it. He'll make jump shots off the glass. He'll occasionally make a three-point shot. And then, again, just to have the capability to have 10 second-half assists last night is just astonishing to me. And I give it up to this guy who early on, to me, was just a jump-over-the-Kia dunker. He was a win the slam dunk. He was Lob City. He was perfect for that team. But now he's become a basketball player. Now, he'll occasionally play a little out of control. He had that terrible killer turnover at the end of Game 2 of the Spurs series at home, lost that game, and he went 1 for 9 in Game 5 in the fourth quarter and missed a couple of free throws and had 3 turnovers. He'll have those games occasionally, but he has come miles and miles in my book. I would still barely take Steph at number one, but I just wanted to tell you that I'm seeing so much more out of Blake Griffin. I think it's the Doc Rivers effect that you talked about a couple of questions ago, but he is starting to amaze me as a basketball player, and I never thought I would see this from him.
Yeah, I think you were a little, you were a little overly critical and underestimated his skills going into the league. I mean, he still came into the league and played really well. But you're right, he's improved tremendously. Now, Doc Rivers told me last night after, Doc did his interviews at the podium, he said he's like Bill Walton as a passer.
Huh.
I asked him, I said, where does Blake get all these assists from now? Yeah, he said, look, I've been saying all along, he said, this guy, it is. He said he's like Bill Walton passing the basketball, which, as you know, is high praise.
Well,
I'm with you. He's improved tremendously. And I give you credit because there were very few people. You and Bobby Knight are like the only people I remember raving about Steph Curry.
Yeah.
I certainly didn't think he would be this good. I didn't think he'd really be an all-star caliber player, let alone an MVP.
Well, Chris, the other thing that turned me away from Blake early was his reputation at the University of Oklahoma for being soft. That you could get physical with him early in those Big 12 games, and he would just sort of fold up and go away. And as late as, when did Chauncey come on our show? A couple of years ago?
Miami final,
we had Chauncey on the show before he worked at ESPN. This was 2 years ago.
Yep.
And he basically, I don't have to use the word soft, but I think that was the message was that even as his teammate, he saw Blake as a little too soft. I'm not seeing that anymore. I'm seeing Bull and China Shop occasionally where he plays a little out of control, but he ain't no softy, I can tell you that. He is crashing and banging, and people. He's taking his pound of flesh in the paint. Much like you do, Chris, when you come on TV.
Yes. Let me say this. People might think this is crazy. If these guys can stay healthy, remember, John Stockton and Karl Malone did not get to the finals till many, many years of playing together.
Yep.
And I think you could, look, Chris Paul, all-time great point guard, you could see these two become a Stockton-Malone type tandem.
I could see it. I could, honestly.
So Manny Pacquiao could face disciplinary action from the Nevada boxing officials for failing to disclose a shoulder injury right before his fight with Floyd Mayweather Jr. Manny has a significant tear in his rotator cuff, but Pacquiao and his team, Mr. Bayless, checked no a day before the fight. On a commission questionnaire asking if he had a shoulder injury. Joining us now to discuss playing injured or playing hurt is our favorite guy. And when you join us, you upgrade the show.
Well, I don't know about upgrade the show, but I do know this. I watched the show yesterday, and my good friend.
With this one?
Yeah, that's Skip Bayless.
Okay.
And Stephen A.
And he had over TNT.
And then I tell you what, when I turned the show on, I went,
who's that?
Oh, that's not good.
It's not
and
good.
I said, is he trying to get street credit or what?
No.
And I said, he must have lost the bet
he did.
to Stephen A.
Yeah.
I got the solution.
What's the solution?
Do what I do.
What's that?
I always bet $2.
That's it.
That's all I can afford.
Yeah.
And a $2 bill.
Wait, are you trying to
So when you bet from now on, here's your $2 bill.
Yeah.
When you get that. That's what you got to do. You get $2 bills. And you make sure when people lose their bet, you make them sign a $2 bill. Oh. This is my present to you. From now on, do never bet again that you're going to wear a costume. Here's your $2 bill.
It wasn't my bet.
But you have to realize the history of it is that he bet Stephen A. to wear a Tony Romo jersey.
Wait, but Stephen A. volunteered
and I saw that.
And he wore it for 2 hours.
I saw that.
And Stephen A. was like,
took his off.
Exactly.
But remember, wait a second. Just point of order here.
Yes.
Stephen A. Smith went on record. He laughed and said, if the Dallas Cowboys win the NFC East, I will wear a Tony Romo jersey and a hat.
No, you're right.
I didn't say it to him. He said it. He did it to himself, right?
You're right.
$2 bet.
That's it.
Got it. Here on forward.
Okay, so listen.
Where do you get these?
Got to go to the bank. Make people go to the bank. Got to get them at the bank.
You know he has a lot of money.
Oh, yeah, $2. That's about it.
He's got a bunch of those sitting somewhere.
Yeah, Jefferson's.
Anyway, we appreciate you being here.
Good to be here.
I love it when you're here. The question is this. We're talking about playing injured or hurt. I heard you on Mike and Mike this morning. Really good perspective. Do you blame Manny for withholding the fact that he was injured?
Players are never going to tell you that they can't go.
Right.
That's just the mindset of a player. Now, obviously, in our sport, in team sports, it's much easier to protect that guy because you're not out there alone. Where in fighting, obviously, the only way you can protect yourself is try to protect yourself. But if you're not able to fight up to your ability, that's a problem. with that being said, you can't convince an athlete that he can't compete, and that's what they do in Pacquiao's situation. And I'm not going to sit here and try to say I knew what he was thinking, but I have an idea of how athletes think. I was an athlete before. And there's a difference between being injured and being hurt. If you're injured, you know I cannot perform up to my level.
Okay.
You're always hurt. If you're an athlete, you always hurt.
Something is always hurting.
But here's the problem. Some guys, when they're hurt, they think they're injured. That's not good.
Yep.
Explain.
In other words, you know, I'm not 100% healthy. My shoulder hurts. I can still play, but some guys will go, "Oh, coach, I can't go," and they're really hurt. They're not injured. See, in other words, and that's the fine line. So, how much this injury affected him punching? Only he knows that. I don't know that. We all speculate. Well, he couldn't fight. Now it comes out he signed a waiver that he wasn't nothing wrong with him. Well, somebody should have known something. He's taking all these things to mask it, to help him, and then he doesn't get to do it before the fight. Well, something's wrong. Because you generally don't take all those things before a fight unless something's wrong, right? Now, did he perform well? I don't know. I just think it's one of those deals that, you know, we're going to make a big deal out of it. People that were betting would want to maybe know that more, say, well, he was injured. Look, players play hurt, and some players play injured all the time. That's just a fact. That's a fact. That's just an athlete's mentality. When it's time to compete, I'm playing, coach. You as a coach have to tell the guy most of the time, you're not going, partner. You're not going. Not going today. Didn't happen here. We fought.
Okay. Beautiful perspective. Now, let me try to talk you through something that I attempted to explain to my debate partner, Stephen A. Smith.
You tried.
And I failed miserably because he's not as reasonable and open-minded a man as you are.
Be nice. You know he's watching.
His guy won.
Stop it.
His guy won.
That's what happened.
Nice.
That's good.
Okay. So please open your mind because
I'll open it up.
I'm asking our viewers to do the same.
Yes.
Because there are, I'm sure, millions of people out there right here, right now.
Yes.
Who are saying, I paid $100 to watch a fight in which a man fought with a torn rotator cuff that is requiring major surgery that's going to put him out for a whole year. I wasted 100 of my dollars, my hard-earned dollars, and they didn't tell me he was hurt, because if I had known he was hurt that badly going into the fight, I wouldn't have watched. I wouldn't have given him my $100. So, but again, if we put it in the NFL context, a game, Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, people are watching games in which players probably shouldn't be on the football field, but they are on the football field, and they do okay because they suck it up and they play through it. Some are capable, some are not capable of that. Okay, now think about this. Manny Pacquiao is 36 years of age. For 5 long years, he has campaigned for one fight and one fight only, Floyd Mayweather Jr. He could not get him to okay this, to even talk about this fight. There are all these PED accusations going back and forth. He sued the Mayweather camp for the PED accusations. He was furious about it. Floyd shamed him, put a racist rant up on the internet, and Pacquiao was steamed over this. So he started to fight back by daring Floyd to fight him in commercials. He goaded him. He taunted him into fighting, and finally he felt like he backed Floyd into such a corner that Floyd finally said at age 38, I guess I got to do this because I can't have that big asterisk on my undefeated record that I ran from Manny Pacquiao. So finally, May 2nd, 2015, it's going to happen. 2.5 weeks before, he's sparring. And I don't know exactly how it happened. He tears his right shoulder. He's left-handed, but he tears his right rotator cuff. And it's bad, but he's saying, man, I don't know. Maybe, he knows that if he gives Floyd one excuse here, if he says, I need a year off, I got to go have surgery on this, that he was afraid Mayweather would say, you know what, you're out, pal. I gave you your shot. I'm 38. I don't want to fight much longer. Remember, Floyd's talked again and again. This coming September, he wants to end it and retire. So if you're asking Floyd to wait a whole year, Manny Pacquiao's afraid that he would just say, you're done. It's a little about the money and a lot about the pride and the principle of this thing, that he wanted to beat Mayweather. But the money is huge, too, because if you think Manny Pacquiao can draw that kind of a gate against anybody but Floyd Mayweather
or
Jr.?
Even
no.
a year from now, if he had to admit that something was wrong.
I would agree.
Yeah.
So this was huge to his life, his whole legacy, and he finally thought, you know what? I'm going to try this. I think I can do it, but I need a Toradol shot. You know, Toradol, the NFL players use. It's an anti-inflammatory shot to take some of the pain, maybe mask a little bit of it. He needed it 2 hours before the fight, and his manager is filling out the form a week before the fight. Nevada Athletic Commission, you have to check the box that you have a shoulder injury. Why he didn't do it, nobody seems to know. Was he trying to hide the injury on the form? Because it showed that he already had a Toradol shot. He had several different shots, right? Anti-inflams. So something was clearly wrong, and the Nevada State guy's reading it saying, he's doing all this for nothing? You know, because he didn't check any box of any injury. Well, were they trying to hide it, or were they just dumb? Did they just make a big mistake? But finally, in the end, a Toradol shot. Would it have really gotten him much better through the fight? I doubt it. Because if you're torn, man, you are torn. It's not going to operate much better. It's not going to function much better. Maybe it'd take a little of the pain when you actually connect with something against this torn cuff. But in the end, he just said, I'm going to suck it up and I'm going to fight. And I thought he fought his little tail off, given the fact that he was basically a one-handed boxer.
Well, and I think there's so many things, and we're all trying to figure out what happened in the mindset of Manny, obviously his group of advisors. At the end, you know, it just looks bad now. You know, now let's just say
bad.
Let's just say this. Let's say he would admit it before that. You know, I got a shoulder, and then fought.
Right.
Would we look at the fight different? We probably wouldn't. We'd say, well, he wasn't healthy and he fought, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a great debate. Obviously, you mentioned players playing hurt. And the fans being mad that, you know, well, if I'd have known he was hurt, I wouldn't have paid for it $100. Well, Peyton Manning played the last 5 games hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, he was injured.
We figured that out. Yeah.
Okay? And you could tell the way they were playing. Now, he didn't come out and say it. He said, yeah, I got this I'm dealing with. But he never told how bad it was, right? I mean, he had to get surgery. So this happens. I mean, players will play that way.
Quick story.
Yeah.
Do you remember the great Emmitt Smith game against the Giants? Yeah. Everybody talks. It's a little before your time, but Emmitt Smith played with a knockdown shoulder. It was I think it was called I might be foggy on this, grade 2 separation that he suffered during the game. It was for all the marbles of the NFC East and home field advantage. And they won the game, and Emmitt was sensational. And after the game, I'm talking to the trainer, the Cowboys trainer at the time, who refused to over-glorify what had just happened, because he said, you know, they're making such a big deal out of this. He says, I got 20 guys in this locker room who have the very same thing, and nobody's saying a word about it, but we're all putting him up on a pedestal, and the point was Emmitt didn't like needles. He just didn't want to take a painkiller shot, and at halftime they offered him one, and he said no. So the trainer's like, no big deal. They all got them, you know? Okay, they all do. You know
Except that our game, team sports are different.
Yep.
You can protect the guy a little bit.
Sure, you can.
Individual sport?
Not in the individual sport.
You can't get protected.
Just a reminder, Stephen A. got a text from Floyd, and Floyd did say, and we'll just repeat that once again, he will fight him in a year after his surgery. So rematch, perhaps. Floyd's ready. Look at your face. You didn't know.
Wait, we got another fight.
Yeah, we do. Maybe. Well. Jameis Winston's brand new contract with the Bucs contains a clause prohibiting him from playing professional baseball during the length of his deal. Winston concerned some Bucs officials in the past by expressing his desire to at least consider playing baseball at some point. So here is the question. Do you have a problem with the Bucs banning baseball in his contract? Our coach is here. You can put on Lovie Smith's hat, so to speak.
No, I do not. That's not surprising at all.
Are you surprised? No, you feel like they should be doing that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think Jameis Winston has to realize that this is big for him. And this is big for this organization and for his career. And I understand he's a dual athlete. He's been a guy that, you know, he loves competing, but now he's in a position where it's not like college football. This is a profession. And he's got to put all his heart and his mind into this one thing. He's on a team that's not very good. They need this guy to play well for them to win. There's a lot of pressure on this young man, and I think the more he can stay focused on the job at hand right now as being a quarterback in the National Football League. Different than college football.
Sure.
Okay. First player picked in the draft. He needs to succeed for a lot of reasons. For a lot of reasons. Okay, so I think they protected themselves. And Jameis understands. He can say, well, I want to play baseball. He gets it. He understands. And Lovey's had the conversation. They had this conversation before they drafted this young man. He knew this was coming.
All right.
I spent a lot of time around Deion Sanders.
It's different.
Very different story. I'm glad you point that up. Deion was the greatest all-around athlete I ever observed. And I was there around Bo Jackson. But listen, Deion, because Deion was a good high school basketball player.
Agree.
He was a surrealistic athlete. He was beyond anything I have ever seen in many athletic ways, especially obviously playing cornerback, because you could just say, here, you take that guy,
cover that cat.
That guy's gone. He's out of the game the rest of the game. But Deion was so great, he was so gifted, that he could just show up and play cornerback, not quarterback, but cornerback, no problem. Not that he didn't do some film study, although some days it really didn't matter whether he studied or not, because he could take that guy out of that game. And he could go play baseball, and fly helicopter back and forth, whatever it required during the World Series with the Atlanta Braves, and he could get away with it because he was that gifted. This is the hardest position to play in sports, quarterback. This is a young man with a lot riding on him, a lot of pressure, a lot of expectations. First overall pick in the draft, going to what was last year not a very good football team. I think that's going to change pretty quickly.
I agree.
Right? And I love the head coach, and and love the head coach. So I think great things are going to happen, but they need his 1,000% commitment to making great things happen fairly quickly, right?
Yeah, and he's still a young guy. This is not the situation of Russell Wilson.
Okay, so what's the difference?
Russell Wilson's, he played baseball a little bit,
Sure.
And Russell Wilson's a much more mature person, in my opinion.
Okay.
Being around Russell Wilson. Maturity, we still have to learn. You need to be around to do that. You need mentoring, and you're going to get that from your head coach. Trust me. Lovey's going to visit with this guy. There's going to be constant communication, and this guy's going to have to win the locker room. He's a first-round pick. He's a first-player pick, not like Russell Wilson, third-player pick. Baseball might have helped him. He matured. He was around baseball. Okay, this guy's first-player pick.
And he earned the job.
When he walks in the locker room, those players are looking at him going, okay, big fella, let's see. Let's see if this transfers. What you did in college at Florida State, we get all that until he throws his first interception in practice. Okay, hey, can you get us out of the huddle? Can you call the play? I want to know all that. So he got a lot to prove now.
He does. And Russell Wilson not only earned that job in Seattle, but he came very close to winning 2 Super Bowls. So he has a resume.
Yes.
And yet his little dalliance with baseball in the offseason, it's just for fun, because clearly he had some minor league years and he can't hit the baseball.
No.
And he knows that. I think he can catch the baseball.
Right.
I think he could play big league second base, maybe shortstop for all I know, but definitely second base.
Coach, your take. The day of the two-sport athlete done?
I think it's very difficult because of demands on these guys. At certain positions, I think quarterback, it's very difficult. These guys are around the building all the time. Quarterbacks don't have off seasons. No. They're like coach, they get about a month. I mean, during the season, the quarterbacks are there Monday. They're there Tuesday. On the off day, people say, well, players are off. Quarterbacks are not. The real good ones. They stick around the building. Off season,
I agree.
They got players coming together, and they're working out. I mean, this is hard. This is a hard job, boy,
It's
anymore.
the hardest job.
Because there's so much pressure on the guy to perform. It's hard. Everybody's looking at you.
Yeah, I know Jameis grew up loving the sport, the game of baseball. I think it's in his heart that he loves it. He's going to have to let go of it.
ESPN Radio.
With the action on the court, the diamond, or the gridiron.
Comes alive.
The NBA.
The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions.
Major League Baseball.
San Francisco Giants are the champions of the baseball world.
A new college football playoff.
College football playoff national champion, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Your home for the best in sports play-by-play.
ESPN Radio.
During round 1 of the playoffs, Greg Popovich had no shame when it came to using the intentional foul rule to the Spurs' advantage against the Clippers, especially when DeAndre Jordan was on the floor. Coach Pop elaborated on his feelings about the rule. There will be a lot of discussion about the fouling, as there should be, but principle-wise, I feel really strongly that it's a tactic that can be used. If someone can't shoot free throws, that's their problem. As I said before, if we're not allowed to do something to take advantage of a team's weakness, a trade should be made before each game. We won't foul your guy, but you promise not to block any of our shots, or we won't foul your guy and you allow us to shoot all uncontested shots. I think that's some sarcasm. We need that sarcasm.
Well, we know the Spurs can't jump, so, you know.
Maybe not.
The trade-off would be, Don't block our shots.
Yes,
right?
we won't foul you.
Yeah.
We're good. So joining us now is our NBA analyst, good friend of the show, Chauncey Billups. Good to have you here. Again, Stephen A. isn't here when you come on.
There he is.
You feel that chair a lot better.
You stop being mean to your partner.
I upgraded this seat. Huh?
Listen.
I like that.
Listen.
I like that.
Got some presents to
You know you're hurting his feelings. You shouldn't do that. Chauncey,
Here's my guy.
let's talk about this. How do we fix the rule, if it can be fixed?
I don't think it can be fixed. I really don't. I mean, I agree with Coach Popovich and what he said. I mean, you have to learn how to make free throws. That's why you have 4 or 5, sometimes 6 months in the off season to work on your problems. You know, I mean, like for instance, me personally, you know, I wasn't a good finisher in traffic. You know, I just couldn't. These guys are too big, too athletic. I couldn't jump. So I wasn't a good finisher. A lot of guys had that problem. They didn't change the rule and say, okay, when Chauncey comes into traffic or when such and such comes into traffic, stop trying to block his shot. They didn't change the rule. I had to make an adjustment. I learned how to start drawing fouls because I know I can make free throws. Draw the foul, get on the free throw line, make free throws.
Where'd you end up shooting free throws for your career? Close to 90?
Yeah, something around there, you know. But I was a good free throw shooter. But me knowing what I can do, I adjusted my game to start drawing fouls because I wasn't a great finisher in traffic over big guys. So that's what has to happen. Guys got to start making free throws, learn how to make free throws. Blake did it. Blake was a horrible free throw shooter. He learned through hard work. Through hard work because he's such a great worker. He learned how to make free throws. I mean, you can do it. It can be done. You just have to put the work in.
I am so torn about this because obviously my Spurs used this loophole against the Clippers and they've used it against the Rockets before. They would have used it like crazy against the Rockets if they had gotten to the Rockets. And yet, as a basketball fan, I don't like it. I don't like to watch it. It's an eyesore. It feels wrong to me. I saw a good quote from David Blatt, the new Cavs coach, obviously, and he said in Europe, there's an unwritten rule that it's just unsportsmanlike conduct. You just don't do it. Coaches just, they respect each other. Nobody does it in Europe because it's sort of against the spirit of the game. And I do get that because it seems like you're reaching for something that's close to unfair, even though I agree with your point, then you just got to make your free throws. Go ahead.
But, Skip, if I'm playing against you and I know your weaknesses, I know what you can't do, I want you to do what you can't do. I'm not going to play you to what you can do. I'm trying to win the game. I'm trying to win the basketball game. At the end of the day, as a fan, I don't like it. I don't like to watch it. I don't like to watch those guys that can't shoot.
It just
step
slows
up there.
Everything down to a crawl, and you got to walk to the other end.
But as a player, I'm a player. I'm always, even though I can't play and I don't play anymore, I'm always going to be a player.
Right.
As a player, I'm going to try to win the game the best way I can.
Okay, I get it. But as a fan, yours is such a beautiful game to watch when it's in flow and in rhythm, and all of a sudden to have to stop down and watch the guy on the court do the worst thing that he does, which is shocking to it's jarring to your eyes to watch DeAndre Jordan brick free throws because he bricks them sometimes. You know, they're like breaking the backboard.
So what's the difference in if I'm on a great defensive team?
Okay.
The team we're playing has got a horrible three-point shooter in the corner.
Okay.
We're playing good D, stopping everybody, rotating to every man on the floor but him, making him shoot that three-point shot.
Same difference. I get you.
It's basketball.
And the Spurs used to suffer because Splitter, when he first came over from Europe and played in the league, he could not make he's a 50% free throw shooter.
Sure.
And over one side, they started doing hack a splitter.
Yeah.
What did he do over the summer? He just said, I'm going to fix this. And he turned himself into a 70% free throw shooter, and they stopped fouling because you can't foul that guy.
There's your remedy.
Okay?
There's your answer.
There's one other. And I think the league is going to look at this for the sake of the entertainment value of this game.
Sure.
You could make it at the ref's discretion a technical foul to do an intentional way off the ball foul. And it's going to be the ref's discretion, and they're going to blow some of these because sometimes it's going to be, it's not going to be what you think it is. It could just be an accidental foul off the ball, running into somebody accidentally or whatever. But if they see and feel that was an intentional foul of a poor free throw shooter, it could be an immediate technical foul, which means anybody on that team gets to go to the free throw lane and shoot a free throw, and they get the ball back. Now, that would stop it. Wouldn't that stop it?
So then you're going to have smart players like myself as I was. Okay. Now, if DeAndre's coming into the screen, I'm guarding Chris Paul, right?
Yeah.
I'm just going to foul him coming into the screen because it's on the play. It's not off the ball. It's not he threw the ball in, we're running down there to foul him.
Okay.
I'm just going to guard Chris Paul.
Discretion to see whether Chauncey was really doing this or really trying to.
I'm trying to get through the screen. I'm trying to get through the screen. You're going to tell me I can't get through the screen?
That's what you perfected.
Yeah, I'm trying to get through the screen. Or say I'm guarding J.J. Redick on a pin down. I'm chasing.
You could probably get away with what you're talking about.
Guys are still going to be smart, Skip.
No longer could you get away with putting Matt Bonner in the game to chase down DeAndre Jordan in the far corner and shake him.
No, you can't do that anymore.
You can't do it anymore. And it would, look, I don't know. I just don't like to watch it, but I agree with the premise. It's basketball that you have to be able to make your free throws. I am convinced, and I do not know this, but there was a point in, I think it was Game 6 at San Antonio, in which Chris Paul had a sideline conversation with Coach Popovich during a lull.
Yeah.
And I think he was.
But you don't know that. But
I don't know this, but it just came across that way. And then Pop dropped the strategy after a while, where I think he was shamed. He took a shot at himself after Game 7. Yeah. He was talking about how the teams played straight up with each other, the Clippers and the Spurs. There was no nonsense on the court. He said there's no baloney on the court between these two teams. No, fisticuffs, no trash talk. No baloney, he said, except me fouling Jordan. He called it baloney.
He called himself out for it, sure.
Okay, because he knows it's baloney.
I'm never going to be ashamed trying to win the game.
Yeah,
I'm never going to be ashamed trying to win the game.
All right.
Busy weekend. As you know, the NFL draft was this weekend. Let's take a look at how the Cowboys did. They filled a very crucial need with a smart defensive selection of Byron Jones on day 2. They took a gamble, but they got a top 10 talent in the 60th overall pick at Randy Gregory. They also picked up a linebacker, Damian Wilson, and a young tackle in Chaz Green who can play multiple positions. Herm here, back, hanging out with us. Take a look at what the Cowboys did. What do you rank them now in the NFC East?
They're still the favorite.
Okay.
Hard for me to say that not being an Eagle fan.
Uh-huh.
I do think the Eagles have improved on the defensive side of football. I'm a little bit concerned at the quarterback position right now. Can Sam Bradford stay healthy if he's the guy, or if not with Sanchez? So that's a little bit of concern, but I still like the Eagles.
What about Tim Tebow?
Tim Tebow's more, to me, he might be involved in a two-point play.
Okay.
He's a situation player. Okay. We'll see what that unfolds.
You realize you got my running back over there now. That guy named DeMarco.
Now he's yours?
He's really, and that's what, that's the good thing for them.
Yes.
But you still have to score points by throwing. Now, the Cowboys, I think they upgraded their defense. This team wasn't very good defensively last year. Rod Marinelli did a fabulous job. Only sacked the quarterback 28 times. Exposed the secondary a lot to big plays. They went out and got a corner who I think is a raw, talented kid. The kid from Connecticut. Gregory, I'm actually doing some mentoring with Gregory.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Breaking news.
Uh-oh.
Well, that's what they said. They said they needed someone to actually.
Well, I'm not in the Dallas organization, but his group contacted me a month before the draft or so I visited with.
Well, that should give you hope, because that's good. That's good news for you
already. So we've had conversations.
So you have talked to the kid.
Oh yeah, a couple times already. He called me after the first round.
How did he strike you in your first session?
Good. A guy that knows there's some things in his life that he needs help with.
Good.
And, I think the Dallas Cowboys do a great job when it comes to helping players. This comes before the Des Bryant issue, and he'll know this. Charles Haley.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they've had situations like this before, so he's in a spot where he's got a support system. Starts with Jerry, starts with the head coach, obviously, and then Rod Marinelli. And so I think he couldn't be happier, the conversation we had, with going to the Dallas Cowboys. Because he knows they have a plan for him. And he's screaming for help. And that's a good thing. So going forward, hopefully it works out for him. And they took a shot at, Hardy. So now all of a sudden, they've got some pretty good rushers. Sean Lee's coming back. He was hurt last year, right? Yep. So, you look at this team defensively, they'll be better. Offensively, the only concern is, can McFadden play 16 games?
Yeah.
I don't know that. I'm hoping he can.
Do you think they should get a running back?
There's still time.
Okay.
You don't play till September.
So
they'll look at this situation, and they'll look at it, and the more they look at it, they'll see where McFadden's at, and they'll, go, well, do we need to trade for a guy? Do we need to trade for a second running back?
Enter AP.
But I don't think they're going to get him. They would love to get him.
Sure.
If they got AP, let me tell you something. It's not fair.
Right. Okay.
Wow.
They wouldn't be fair if they got
Not a fair fight.
Really?
It's not a fair fight, in my opinion.
Very
You get him,
impressive.
not a fair fight. Not a fair fight. If they were to get him, and I'll go on record, if they get him, I think they are. They're my NFC favorite.
Okay.
They're slight favorites already.
Well, with him, it's like
That's over.
look out.
It's a wrap.
It's over.
Back to Randy Gregory. I'm on record on the show. I didn't love the pick. I don't know anything about him except his track record.
Yes.
Or lack thereof. Because it's pretty sorry what's happened to this young man so far.
Yeah.
Now, if you're right, I love it because you've stolen it. Where you got him in the draft, he can play. But to me, he came across as more trouble than worth. And if he continues to have issues, then it's a bust. You wasted that pick.
Right.
That far down in the draft. It gives me great hope that you're somewhat in his life, even on the periphery. And he should listen to you because you know the score. You know how the game has to be played on and off the field. And that gives me heart that this young man now has a chance in large part because of your involvement here.
Well,
I did not know that.
Okay.
Now, they have upgraded. Again, the Hardy acquisition, you know what I think about Greg Hardy. I wanted him gone for the year. It's 10 games. Fine, out of sight, out of mind for a while. But when he does come back, he can play. We know he can play. On this level, he can play. He can be a difference maker.
Yes.
Now, back to the running back. I wanted Adrian Peterson somehow, some way. It was like heart over head that they would finally acquire him some way right before the draft. I was even game to try trading the first pick straight up for Adrian Peterson if they would do that, whatever they were, 27,
Yes.
the bottom of the first round. Apparently, either Minnesota said we're not interested or Dallas said no because Stephen Jones was on the record. We don't trade picks like that for veteran players. And there would be some risk of Adrian Peterson getting hurt at age 30 as he goes into his 30s, obviously. Right. But I'm with you. It's game over if you get that guy behind that line. Even for 1 year, it's game over. Even if he lasted a couple of years, it's worth the price of admission. Because Byron Jones, I saw him when he was here. I was watching him in the gym. You know, he set the combine record for the standing broad jump. I think he set a world record for it.
Athletic.
Yeah. Oh, he's just explosive. I'm not convinced he's as great a football player as he is a workout guy.
He's got an upside. You're right. He's a raw, talented guy.
I'm not sure about that.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
But that was a need position for them because they need a corner and a safety. And he may be both because he's big enough to play
exactly
safety.
Right.
But the running back by committee now. Joseph Randle, every time he touched the ball last year, something good happened. He averaged almost 7 yards a carry in 51 times that he touched the football. That's pretty good.
Yes.
So you got him. McFadden was just sensational in the SEC, and for whatever reason in Oakland, he was not sensational. He was nicked, he was banged.
First year or two, he was pretty good.
He was pretty good, but never like that. He never did what he used to do to LSU or whoever they put, the big SEC battles. He would just run wild on people, and he looked like he was capable of doing that in pro football. I loved him before the draft. But then they got that kid, Ryan Williams, who was pretty good for the Cardinals, and they sort of stashed him on the practice squad last year. So it's by committee now.
Yes.
You got three, and you just say, our line is so good, and we've even beefed that up with some depth through the draft. Maybe they could just do it by committee and say the line is the star.
Yeah, the line is the star, and that's what they're saying. Yeah. That's exactly what they're saying. But I agree with you. If they got Adrian Peterson,
it's a wrap. It's all over. All right, so we talked about how the Cowboys did in the draft. What about the Jets? They got Leonard Williams, and in the fourth round, they managed to pick up what Skip says is the steal, quarterback Bryce Petty. After the draft, we want to rank the Jets in the AFC East. Coach still here with us. Where do you rank them? Are they really going to give the Patriots a run for their money?
I think they are. I think all those teams in the division are. But it started with me with the Jets before the draft. Okay. When they went out and acquired a whole new secondary. They brought Camardi back. They brought Revis back. Screens. Gilchrist. Okay. So when you look at that, this is a team that gave up 31 touchdown passes last year. They were really good up front. They had a front seven with Wilkerson and the guys, and now they get Leonard. They went out and got Brandon Marshall on offense. They also bring in the kid from Ohio State, Devin Smith. Okay? Reminds me a lot of Lavernius Coles, built-wise. Okay? And the key is they bring in Chan Gailey, offensive coordinator. Okay. He's a guy that can take an athlete, especially a quarterback, and put him in position to run an offense around his skill set. So Chan is involved in this offense, which I think will be a lot better than it was last year.
Okay.
You know, you might even enjoy coaching this team.
He's staying here. He doesn't want to leave.
No.
Spin.
Yeah, because you know what staying here is?
Yeah.
You never have to worry about the score.
Oh.
It's always good. You win every Sunday.
You've been there and done
I've been there,
that, right?
Yeah. Won a division if I was there, by the way.
You know what? This well could be the best defense in pro football. Especially now that you throw Leonard Williams, we had him here on the show, he's a talent, he's a raw kid and all that, but if you throw him into the rotation and just let him go in there and just let it fly, which they will be able to do, they are going to be a load for anybody to deal. It's going to be hard to score on this defense. The front seven, the back seven, however you want to look at it, they're loaded from top to bottom. To me, it just comes down to the quarterback. Now, I like all the pieces around him, Brandon Marshall, and I got my man Zach Stacy from Vanderbilt University.
That's a reminder.
So these are all nice picks. Devin Smith makes big plays, you know, okay.
Especially, the little side of this. The Buffalo Bills, they got pretty good defense,
yeah, they
too.
do.
They got a pretty good defense.
The Miami Dolphins,
well,
got Sue and the guys, they're pretty good, too. So all of a sudden, all these teams realize, you know, we don't have the quarterback maybe to beat Tom Brady. Well, on the other side of football, we better load up. And go hit Tom Brady. Try to cover those receivers.
Sure, we're just not going to lay down.
This is the division. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Maybe in 2 years, Bryce Petty, it could even take 3 years. He's just going to be a really good starting quarterback in the league, but he'll be raw for a while.
But in the meantime, they're sticking with Geno, right?
Right. Geno's the guy right now.
Well, I don't know. Ryan Fitzpatrick might be the guy.
He's recovering from a broken leg. What do you think? You think Geno? Thanks for listening to the podcast. Remember, you can catch us every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN2. And don't forget, while you are downloading this podcast, check out mine, Be Honest with Carrie Champion, available on iTunes.